Good morning. I want to welcome you to the 15th meeting of the Pennsylvania Public Utility Commission for the year 2015. Unfortunately, I have to open up this meeting with some sad news. I was informed early this morning of the passing of the former Public Utility Chairwoman, Linda Taliaferro. As many of you may know, she was appointed a commissioner back in 1979 under Governor Thornburg, and then became chairwoman after Susan Shaneman in 1983. So we want to take this opportunity to remember her and her life and legacy here at the PUC. And one of our commissioners, Commissioner Colley, did have the opportunity to serve with her, so I do want to recognize him at this time.
And thank you, Chairman, and good morning, everyone. Linda Taliaferro deserves more of a goodbye than these hastily prepared remarks, but better now, and we will be issuing a press release which will detail her many achievements while she was on the commission and later, but particularly when she was on the commission. Linda and Susan Shaneman and I were appointed on the same day by Governor Thornburg in November of 1979. This was right several months, but it was the same year after the 3 Mile Island accident. And we spent the first 3 months of our tenure sitting en banc on hearings on what to do with general public utilities, whether to let the company go bankrupt and divide up its territory with other utilities, or what to do. During that whole episode and many others, Linda was a stalwart commissioner. And let me try to describe why. You have to understand the era. This was a time of high inflation in our country, which meant that utility expenses were escalating rapidly. They had to come in for one rate case after another. My whole tenure from 79 to 85 was one rate case after another. The commission was in the public eye all the time. We were severely ridiculed constantly. It was a time when the nuclear power plants being built by PPL and PECO were being completed and had to be, as a part of a rate case, placed in the rate base of the utility so the companies could begin earning a return on their investment. And in most instances, it had taken them 15 years to build these plants. The Limerick plant of PECO was a particularly contentious proceeding. Linda took the lead in how to deal with the rate-making aspects of that and to implement a cap on the construction costs, which allowed its completion. So it was a very contentious time. When we joined the commission in 79, Wilson Goode was the chairman, but he left after 3 months after our arrival to get ready to run for mayor of Philadelphia. Susan Shaneman was named chairman by Governor Thornburg, but her term expired after 3.5 years, and she was not renominated. And Governor Thornburg named Linda Taliaferro as chairman. She was extremely diligent in her duties as chairman and as commissioner, but as chairman, she was here every day. She never married. She devoted her life to this job and to her mother. Among other of her characteristics, she was a very caring person. She had many siblings, but it fell to Linda to take care of her mother. And they lived about 3 blocks away from my wife and my children and me, and we often saw her and her mother. And she juggled taking care of her aged, ill mother with, I'm afraid, not much help from her siblings, and all of her responsibilities as chairman, which were many and a very contentious time. We were on television almost every week, and it was not pretty. And she handled it with a great deal of grace and in a very articulate manner. She, at least in my mind, was our Barbara Jordan. Some of you may remember Barbara Jordan, who was a member of the House of Representatives from Texas, and led diversity and equality as an example in Texas in the United States House of Representatives. She was one of the most articulate congressmen we've ever had. Linda was just like her. They even looked alike. They carried themselves alike. They spoke the same kinds of things. She was our Barbara Jordan. Linda was intelligent. She was a lawyer. We were appointed at a time when there were 3 vacancies on the commission, and in that time the terms were 10 years, and as now, you received the residue of a term when a vacancy occurred. Linda was given an 8.5-year term, Susan 3.5, and I was given a year and 3 months. Thankfully, when Wilson left, I got the remainder of his term. But Linda was the youngest commissioner. I think she remains the youngest commissioner ever appointed. She was 32 years old. Susan was 33 and I was 34, and they entrusted us with the 3 Mile Island mess. To this day, I marvel at that. But Linda she was an attorney with Westinghouse in Pittsburgh at the time. She was really apolitical. In fact, she was an independent until the eve of her nomination by Governor Thornburg, and she adopted Republican registration, but she never was political. We tried not to be political, and we were blessed with having Richard Thornburg, who never, to my knowledge, interfered with anything we did. He respected our independence, and certainly under Linda's chairmanship, she would not stand for any interference with our decision-making. Even though she socialized, she could socialize with utility executives and vote against them the next day and not blink an eye. It was just understood that she was going to vote the public interest. She was a very ethical person. Not only did she see that the commission needed more diversity and led the hiring of minorities and women at our commission. She was a real leader. In fact, some years after she left the commission in 1988, she told me that she was going to go to divinity school because she wanted to carve out a career advising corporate boards on ethical behavior. And in fact, that's what she did. And it came naturally to her. I could go on, and we will be more specific in a statement that we'll issue later. But I'll close by saying that she was not only ethical and caring and intelligent and articulate, but she cared a lot for the employees of the commission. She was the one who instigated an ethics guide for us. She insisted that the salaries of commission staff would rise according to union contracts and equity among management employees without regard to the fact that the commissioner's salary was stated in the Public Utility Code at $40,000 a year. She did not care in the least that her salary could not rise. She would not hold anybody else back. When I left the commission in '85, there were nearly 100 employees of the commission who were receiving more compensation than we were. And it was Linda who forcefully argued that we're not going to hold anybody else back simply because we have a statutory salary. Let me just close by quoting Linda's successor as chairman, who was Bill Shane. And Bill, in his usual articulate fashion, said this to the Philadelphia Inquirer upon learning that Linda's term was up and she was going to take position with a law firm in Philadelphia. He said, "I grieve the loss of a dear friend, but I know this is a wonderful opportunity for her. Linda Taliaferro led this agency through some of its most difficult years. She's given magnificent public service to the people of Pennsylvania." I think that sums it up. So the Commonwealth has lost one of its most dedicated and honest and articulate public servants. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Commissioner Cawley. Please join us and stand for a moment of silence. Thank you. I ask that you remain standing for our Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Our first order of business is the approval of the minutes. I will recognize Commissioner Powelson.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I have reviewed the minutes of the July 30th public meeting and recommend that they be approved as submitted here this morning.
Second.
We have a motion by Commissioner Powelson to accept the July 30th minutes, to approve the July 30th minutes, with a second by Vice Chairman Coleman. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion passes 5-0. We will move on to our agenda for today's public meeting, calling up our Director, Cheryl Walker Davis.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Good morning. Good morning, Commissioners.
Good morning.
May it please this honorable commission, on behalf of your various offices and bureaus, we present for your consideration and disposition the following agenda items, commencing this morning with matters on behalf of the Bureau of Administration. It is recommended that the commission adopt the various recommendations to impose general assessments upon public utilities of the OSBA, the OCA's general assessment, the Commission's general assessment, including the supplemental federal shortfall assessment on gas public utilities, as well as on page 2, the Act 127 assessment of pipeline operators, all for fiscal years July 1st of 2015 through June 30th of 2016.
Do I have a motion to accept staff recommendations?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Cawley, second by Commissioner Powelson. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion passes 5-0.
Turning now to matters on behalf of the Office of Competitive Market Oversight on page 3 of the public meeting agenda. It is recommended with regard to the first item that the Commission adopt the recommendation with regard to smart meter technology, as well as the standardization of the acquisition of historical interval usage and billing quality interval usage data via secure web portals.
Do I have a motion to accept the staff recommendation?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion by Commissioner Whitmer, second by Vice Chairman Coleman. Any discussion? I recognize Commissioner Whitmer.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'd like my statement entered into the record as if I had read it in its entirety. Today, we considered an OCMO recommendation for the development of a secure web portal for the acquisition of certain types of data. The directives outlined in the order will allow third parties, such as electric generation suppliers and conservation service providers, to access historical interval usage and billing quality interval use data. The creation of a web portal is another important tool that will further enhance Pennsylvania's competitive retail electric market. However, while I firmly believe that smart meter technology and data will undoubtedly benefit customers, those benefits are matched by a responsibility to adequately protect consumers' sensitive information, particularly in the types of business-to-business data transactions that we're describing here today. Advancements in technology dictate that cybersecurity is and will continue to be critically important, not only to the consumers concerned about their personally identifying information, but also to businesses concerned with breach of proprietary data. The estimated annual cost of cybercrime to the world economy is $445 billion annually, almost 1% of the global income. The scope and breadth of potential problems cybercrime can cause make it imperative that we prepare for and prevent cyber attacks as best we can. I encourage all of our regulated entities to protect their critical assets and information as all technologies evolve, and to highlight this issue in relevant proceedings before the Commission, such as base rate cases. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner Whitmer. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion passes 5-0.
Also, on behalf of the Office of Competitive Market Oversight, it is recommended that the Commission adopt the recommendation with regard to the Duquesne Light Company plan for the implementation of seamless moves and instant connects.
Do I have a motion to accept the staff recommendation?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Colley, second by Commissioner Whitmer. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion passes 5-0.
Turning now to matters presented on behalf of the Office of Special Assistance, commencing on page 4 of the public meeting agenda, it is recommended that the Commission adopt the 2 items appearing on page 4 through and including the recommendation in the proceeding involving the application of James L. Henderson, Jr.
Do I have a motion to accept the staff recommendation?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion by Vice Chairman Coleman, second by Commissioner Powelson. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion passes 5-0.
We recommend the adoption at the top of page 5 of the staff recommendation with regard to the PPL Electric Utilities Corporation petition for approval of its smart meter technology and procurement and installation plan, noting that the agenda item there, 2430781-OSA, should be followed by a REV to note that that matter has been revised.
Thank you. Do we have a motion to accept the staff recommendation?
So moved.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Whitmer, second by Vice Chairman Coleman. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion passes 5-0.
With regard to the PUC's Bureau of Investigation and Enforcement versus Samuel C. Duncan, TA Duncan Garage, there's a joint motion of Commissioners Colley and Whitmer.
Do I have a motion to call up the staff recommendation?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Powelson, second by Commissioner Colley, and I recognize Commissioner Whitmer.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would like our joint motion entered into the record as if it had been read in its entirety. Before us today is an order recommending civil penalties for failure to file an annual assessment report and for failure to pay the Commission's annual assessment on time. By law, public utilities regulated by this Commission are required to file and pay an assessment that provides a reasonable share of the Commission's costs in administering regulatory oversight. However, the law also states, pursuant to Section 3301 of the Code, that the Commission may impose civil penalties, and this part is important, up to $1,000 per violation for the failure to file or pay the annual assessment on time. In the case before us, I&E recommended a civil penalty of $1,000 for failure to file the assessment report and a civil penalty of 15% of the late paid assessment amount, which I might add, in this case, amounts to approximately $2. Because this is the complainant's first offense, and he has paid the total outstanding assessment of $10, we believe that the facts of this case, combined with the complainant's previous history of compliance with our statutes and regulations, warrant the adjustment of the penalty for the filing violation to $250 plus the $2 penalty for the late payment for a total civil penalty of $252. Despite the fact that we are reducing this complainant's civil penalty, we take this opportunity to remind the complainant specifically, as well as other utilities, of their statutory obligation to file their assessment reports and pay their assessments on time. Therefore, we move that the Office of Special Assistance draft an opinion and order consistent with this motion. Thank you.
We have a joint motion by Commissioners Colley and Whitmer. We have a second.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Powelson. Any discussion on the motion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion passes 5-0. Calling up the matter as amended by the joint motion. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The matter as amended by the joint motion passes 5-0.
Turning now to page 6 of the public meeting agenda, we recommend the adoption of the Office of Special Assistance recommendation in the proceeding involving the Commission's Bureau of Investigation and Enforcement versus XTO Energy, Inc. and Mountain Gathering, LLC.
Do I have a motion to accept the staff recommendation?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Colley, second by Commissioner Powelson. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion passes 5-0.
It is recommended that the Commission adopt the Office of Special Assistance recommendation in the matter involving Cynthia Santori Smith versus Pico Energy Company, noting your statement, Chairman Brown, as well as the oral statement of Vice Chairman Coleman.
Do we have a motion to accept the staff recommendation?
So moved.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Whitmer, second by Vice Chairman Coleman. Under discussion, I do have a statement. I'd like to submit my entire statement for the record. I think, so I would just summarize it because I think most people know that many times I have submitted statements in terms of when cases have been dismissed with prejudice, when you have a pro se complainant. I am issuing those same type of statements, my concern being that we should give them more deference as the case law provides for them, especially in cases where they're not appointed by an attorney or, and so I am submitting my comments for the record. I know we also have oral statements by Vice Chairman Coleman.
Thank you, Chairman. I agree that all cases that come before the commission do require a thorough review. In this particular proceeding, the presiding administrative law judge did speak with the complainant, and I believe that the ALJ was the most appropriate person and in the best position to evaluate her credibility. And this is regarding her unexcused absence for an evidentiary hearing. The ALJ believed that it was appropriate to require additional documentation from the complainant to justify the absence, and that this documentation was not provided to the ALJ. There is nothing in this case that has caused me to disagree with the exercise of the discretion of the ALJ, and therefore I will support the staff recommendation.
Any further discussion?
Madam Chair, I'd like to take this opportunity to associate myself with Vice Chairman Coleman's statement and recognize the work that ALJ Fordham did on this particular case. The Vice Chairman is referring to a doctor's note that the complainant did not furnish at the request of the ALJ. So there lies the bigger issue. And I agree with you in your comments about the balance that needs to be struck for pro se complainants and providing them due process in these cases. So again, I just wish to associate myself this morning with Vice Chairman Coleman's statement.
And Chairman,
Yes.
may I associate myself with your statement. This is often a difficult call by our administrative law judges, and we don't wish to make their jobs any more difficult. And I say that as I look directly at our chief administrative law judge. From my discussions with our administrative law judges, they understand this, and it isn't very often that we make a change like this one, which simply allows this complainant to try again by making it clear that the complaint is not dismissed with prejudice. It's dismissed without prejudice. I was struck by the fact that this record is not all that clear. So I'm quite willing to give this complainant the benefit of the doubt under these circumstances and acknowledge that the ALJ tried hard here to do the right thing. So in any event, I associate myself with your statement, Chairman.
Thank you. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion passes 5-0.
And it is recommended that the commission adopt the recommendation with regard to the Susan Kreider versus Pico Energy Company complaint proceeding.
Do I have a motion to accept the staff recommendation?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Powelson, second by Vice Chairman Coleman. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion passes 5-0.
Turning now to matters presented on behalf of the Bureau of Technical Utility Services. With regard to the first matter pertaining to the Pico Energy Company petition for approval of a distribution system improvement charge, there's the motion of Commissioner Colley.
Do I have a motion to call up the staff recommendation?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Whitmer, second by Commissioner Powelson. I will recognize Commissioner Colley for his motion.
Thank you, Chairman. I ask that it be placed in the record as if I had read all of it. This involves a filing by PICO for approval of a distribution system improvement charge. The staff recommendation is to grant the petition and approve the DISC subject to some modifications and to assign one issue to our Office of Administrative Law Judge for hearing and a recommended decision. I'm in general agreement with this recommendation, but there's one aspect of it that I think needs a further modification, and that is in calculating DISC revenue caps. PICO proposes to apply the 5% limit to distribution charges, consumer education charges, state tax adjustments, and here's the key, balancing charges. Act 11, however, only permits the 5% cap to be applied to distribution rates, which may exclude all supply-related rates. PICO's testimony asserts that no supply-related costs have been incorporated into the calculation of the 5% cap. Furthermore, PICO apparently recovers its costs for balancing services through distribution charges in its current tariff. And of course, a tariff has the force of law and is presumed to be reasonable. While the Commission may have permitted balancing services to be classified as distribution in nature in PICO's tariff, I'm not sure that this is a just and reasonable rate design. Balancing charges may be more appropriately characterized as purchase gas cost related supply costs. And it is not clear that, from my knowledge, I know of no other Pennsylvania natural gas distribution company that currently classifies balancing services as distribution in nature, or that has sought inclusion of a purchase gas cost-related rate component in the DISC cap calculation. I therefore conclude that PICO's treatment of balancing charges in its tariff and its proposal to include balancing charges in the 5% limit should also be referred to the Office of Administrative Law Judge for further investigation. And therefore, I move that the petition be granted consistent with this motion and that the Bureau of Technical Utility Services prepare an order consistent with my motion.
We have a motion by Commissioner Colley. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Powelson. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion passes 5-0. Back to the recommendation as amended by Commissioner Colley's motion. Any discussion on that? If not, we can go with the previous roll call. 5-0.
In omnibus fashion, it is recommended that the Commission adopt the recommendations of the Bureau of Technical Utility Services, the remaining recommendations appearing on page 7 as well, as all of the recommendations appearing on pages 8, 9, and 10 through and including the recommendation in the proceeding involving the proposals to select alternative energy credits in the implementation of the Alternative Energy Portfolio Standards Act.
Do I have a motion to accept the staff recommendations?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion by Vice Chairman Coleman, second by Commissioner Powelson. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion passes 5-0.
And that was to select the Energy Credits Administrator. Continuing with the presentation of agenda items and matters on behalf of the Law Bureau, on page 11, we recommend the adoption of the 2 recommendations there appearing through and including the recommendation in the proceedings involving the UGI Utilities, Inc. Gas Division, Electric Division, as well as UGI Penn Natural Gas, Inc. and UGI Central Penn Gas, Inc.'s petition to eliminate enrollment limits for their customer assistance programs.
Do I have a motion to accept the staff recommendation?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Whitmer, second by Commissioner Powelson. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? The motion passes 5-0.
Turning now to matters presented on behalf of the Office of Administrative Law Judge with regard to the first matter involving the complaint proceeding of Premukh Swami Maharaj LLC versus Liberty Power Holdings LLC. There's a joint motion, your joint motion, Madam Chairman, along with Commissioner Whitmer.
Thank you. Do I have a motion to call up the staff recommendation?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Colley, second by Commissioner Powelson. I will recognize Commissioner Whitmer. She will do a far better job than I on this joint motion.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Cheryl, for actually pronouncing the name. I will not. And I would like our joint motion entered into the record as if I had read it in its entirety. Before the Commission today is a complaint against Liberty Power. The complaint, in the complainant alleges that there were excessive charges on its bill and that Liberty Power unilaterally, without notice, increased the complainant's rate. In the initial decision, the administrative law judge dismisses the case by stating that certain sections of the Commission's regulations do not apply, and therefore the Commission lacks the authority to refund charges for the electric generation supply service provided in the case. While nothing that the ALJ says is technically incorrect, in our opinion, the analysis misses the point in the proceeding. We agree with the ALJ's ultimate conclusion that the complaint should be dismissed, but not for the reasoning proffered. In this case, the complaint should be dismissed outright because the complainant didn't satisfy its burden of proof to show that Liberty Power violated any Commission regulation, order, or statute. Specifically, the facts in this case show the following: that in April of 2011, the complainant willingly enrolled with Liberty for a 30-month fixed-price contract that was set to expire in December of 2013. That at the time of enrollment, the complainant was informed that upon expiration of the initial term and receipt of 2 reminder notices, absent any affirmative action by the complainant, that the contract at issue would in fact switch to a variable rate. 3, that the Liberty Power did send 2 reminder notices that were not returned as undeliverable and received no reply from the complainant. And lastly, that upon demonstration of non-action by the complainant, the contract at issue did switch to a variable rate. We do understand the complainant's frustration with receiving a variable rate for 2 billing cycles before the de-enrollment was able to be instituted. However, we believe that the clarification in the reasoning for dismissal of the complaint is necessary to remind all customers of the importance of understanding the terms of their contracts, to reading the renewal notices that are sent, and of being aware of the potential implications of not doing so. This case also perfectly illustrates the benefits of accelerated switching timeframes, which did not exist at the time of this proceeding, allowing a consumer to effectuate a switch for any reason and thereby minimize a potentially negative situation. Therefore, we move that the Office of Special Assistance prepare an order consistent with this motion. Thank you.
I think we have a motion by Commissioner Whitmer. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Powelson. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion passes 5-0. So the staff recommendation as amended by the motion, if there's any further discussion? If not, we can go, if no one has a problem, we'll go back to the previous roll call of 5-0.
It is recommended that the commission adopt ALJ Hoya's initial decision in the proceeding involving Melanie Soa versus Metropolitan Energy Company.
Do I have a motion to accept the staff recommendation?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Colley, second by Commissioner Whitmer. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion passes 5-0.
That concludes the presentation of regular agenda items. Turning now to the carrying agenda, it is recommended that the commission adopt, on behalf of the Bureau of Administration, the recommendation with regard to the supplemental fees upon generators of electricity and natural gas with regard to Act 155 of 2014.
Do I have a motion to accept the staff recommendation?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Colley, second by Commissioner Powson. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion passes 5-0.
Madam Chairman and Commissioners, that does conclude the presentation of agenda items.
Thank you. Before we close out, we know that everyone's about to go and enjoy their Labor Day weekend, so we just want to recognize that and also recognize the efforts of our commission staff and the hard work that they put in each and every day, as well as the utility employees around the state. So we just thank you for that. We ask that you have a safe Labor Day weekend. Thank you. Meeting adjourned.